So for the majority of us when we were kids, we probably wanted to be astronauts or doctors or lawyers or some other shit that made a lot of money. But as a kid, I remember I always wanted to simulate honey and Blender. That was always my magnum opus, what I always wanted to do. And now in the newer version of 2.92, a viscosity solver has been added. So now my dreams of making honey can finally be fulfilled. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the viscosity solver. Personally, I hate fluids. I just want you to know that. So I'm just gonna keep it simple and show you how to do this and then peace out as quickly as fucking possible. So simulating honey, how do we do it? Let's start a new blend file. So again, make sure you have 2.92 or anything updated, because it is possible to do viscosity before that with MantaFlow, but it's not gonna be as easy as it is now. And I think there's a new solver is the point. So with the new scene, you take a cube or whatever object you want to distribute the honey. I'm just gonna use a cube because it's there. Click F3 so you can type something in, and I already typed it in. Quick liquid. Boom. And we have already added in a liquid. Normally you'd have to add in a domain and a vector and not domain, what's it called, the flow and stuff like this. But if you use that command, it all comes in there, okay? And you can see already we have a basic fluid simulation that should have the properties of water, and it's just dropping, and there's a couple things we need to solve about this. First of all, we want our source to be a lot smaller. So I'm gonna keep this up here, something like that, although when we resimulate or click play, you can see nothing changes, right? And that's because like all other physics things in Blender, we need to bake stuff, and then that's what it's going to be using, okay? So with your domain, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to physics properties. I'm going to go to what? I'm going to go to our cache, set it to this so we can actually bake and do that kind of stuff. And then when we rebake, and this is the kind of reason why I hate tutorials like this, you have to bake over and over again. But you can see now we have a lot less water coming in, and it just falls and is sad, okay? Next thing we need to fix is I want water or honey eventually to be constantly flowing out of this, right? And I know this, we're not getting to viscosity yet. We'll get there. But for this flow source is what we call this. So this is the domain. This is the flow source. Set the flow behavior to inflow. In other words, fluid is always going to be coming inflow. That's how you want to remember it. And then again, you want to bake all. And I already put that as a command here. If you want to not go back and forth 1,000 times, just right click and then you can add stuff to quick favorites. So free all and then bake all. And that's just going to resimulate again, this time with a lot more fluid that just doesn't stop. So there you go. Now we're getting a bit closer. Two more things we need to do. One, I want it to kind of shake left and right like we're doing like a Honey Nut Cheerio commercial or advertising for some nature bar or some shit. We'll do it procedurally. To get this shaking back and forth, trigonometry is probably the way to go because sine waves are already periodic. So with a driver, we can do something like frame. This is going to give us the frame number. So frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to output it on the X location. We can make this into a function that actually helps us. So instead of just the frame, we can take frame and do the sine function. So now it's going to be wiggling back and forth really quickly. Take it, divide by 10. You know, if you took a math class, you'll know this is called the period. It doesn't really matter. And also we'll lower the amplitude. Basically, this is a math expression that makes it go 10 times slower and half as wide, okay? So now we have this, and just like any other time, what do we need to do? Say it with me. We need to stop using MantaFlow and use a better program for simulating stuff like RealFlow. No, you just got to bake everything. And now, when this is done, you can see we have something that works pretty well. Okay, now, since we already have these particles, we can mesh this thing, or sometimes it's called skinning the surface. So we don't just have particles, but a mesh we can actually see. To do that, you just want to enable mesh before the next bake. That's going to let us calculate that. But the other thing that makes this look like honey, and the point of the video that I don't know why it took me this long to get to it, viscosity. We can enable this once we free everything. We can enable viscosity. Before you had to do all this in diffusion settings with base, exponent, whatever. Now we just have a single thing with a single number. The bigger the strength, the more viscous the fluid. Again, viscosity is how sticky it is. So glue is like as viscous as it fucking gets. And like water, or there might be stuff that's less viscous than water, I don't know, is on the other end of the spectrum, okay? As for which number to use for honey, I don't know, but all the simulations I've done have been 0.05, so that seems like a fine number. Again, the thicker the thing, the more the number should be, okay? Enable viscosity, enable mesh. You can mess with some settings here. I'm not gonna. And now we're gonna bake. So this time, it's not only gonna do the waving with the particles and all this, but it's gonna skin or mesh our surface so we can actually see what's going on and apply a material to it, which is what's gonna make it look like honey, that transmission-y thing. And then we're also gonna get a viscous fluid. Can I talk long enough that I don't need to cut before getting to frame 250? Only time will tell. Okay, here we go. So now you can see we have, what do we have? Now we can actually go to a solid mode and actually see it. Now you can see we have a mesh. It's looking choppy, and we'll talk about how to fix it. But you can see now it's very slow, and especially in the beginning. And, you could actually animate the viscosity so that it starts off falling really quickly and then it becomes viscous. But you can see it's kind of like meshing into itself in that honey-like way. And if you want this to be higher resolution in the three-dimensional sense, like you want it to take more time simulating, so A, it looks better, and B, you don't have your computer for the weekend because, it's doing the thing, all you have to do is bring up the resolution division. So again, you just click free all to reset everything, bring this up to 64 or something, and then rebake. I'm not going to do this for this tutorial because that would take forever. The initial simulation you saw in the beginning was 64. But just to illustrate how to make the material, because it's so easy, we'll stick with 32. I'm going to switch over to cycles and GPU so it calculates quickly. We can actually hide the flow source at this point because we don't need it. This is actually a mesh of its own, the liquid. To make this look realistic, we need it to be, very reflective and transmissive and stuff like this. So it'd help if we had some kind of background for, it to kind of distort, kind of like a glass cup would. So I'm going to load in an HDRI, so environment texture, HDRIs, I guess any of these are fine, right? It depends where you want your honey to be. Make sure to hide this as well, just so that we don't see it, okay? And transparent. Okay, so to make this look like honey, we already get a base material that it makes liquid domain material, more like liquid garbage material. To make this look like honey, all we need to do is a single node. I don't know why it drops in all these glasses and volume shaders and stuff like this. We just need a single node, right? So with the principled BSDF, like any fluid, you want to bring up the transmission so it's see-through. Right now it's going to kind of look like glass or mucus, more like mucus really. And that's because it is transmissive, but it is very rough. So the reflections are super diffuse and stuff like that. So take the roughness, bring it down. Now it's shiny. And how do we make it look even better? Base color, you want it to be honey. So I guess it's yellowish orange. I guess it kind of depends on the honey. Are there different colors of honey? Is there some bee out there who's shitting out blue honey? I don't know. Maybe. But just pick a honey-like color. You can also bump up the subsurf. This is only going to matter if you have a light source near it that's very strong. Honey, I think, does have quite a bit of a subsurface scattering. In other words, you can see light passing through it, kind of like your fingertips. This might not be the best demo, but you can try to bump this quite a bit until it's showing through, although it doesn't seem to be showing through. We could use nodes, make it 100 times as intense. Nope. I think our HDRI is just too bright, and that's just the essence of it. But either way, technically, subsurface is something you should be adding, but in general, color, roughness, you want it to, color should be honey color. Roughness should be pretty much all the way down. You could have a tiny bit just if you want it to be a tiny bit diffuse, so it's not like a perfect reflection, although I do think it is a perfect reflection because it's smooth as fuck. It's a liquid. Transmission, bring it up, and then for the IOR, or index of refraction, in other words, how much is light going to bend when it passes through it, you can look up the number, but I do believe it's 1.50 something. And did I have reference? I think I had reference or something. No, I didn't have reference. I just had proof that this was a new feature. Here's the commit, by the way. Added new viscosity solver, and it's new to 2.92. Probably should have done that in the beginning of the tutorial, but oh well. In this sense, really all you need to do is enable the viscosity option. Whoops, where did my fluid go? There we go. Really all you have to do is enable the viscosity option and simulate as normal. It doesn't seem like you need to mess around with it too much to get a very honey-like thing. But again, the only thing that's going to make it look more real is in the domain again. In the domain, you want to make sure that you bring up the resolution divisions, and that's what's going to make it look like honey. Let's just go back to the original. I think for the original, I had it set to 64 because, yeah, that looks a lot more dense. Yeah, there you go. That's how you make honey. I mean, there really isn't too much to it. It's an easy tutorial. So honey is a thing you can make now. Goodbye. Bye.